Alright folks, welcome to my garage winery, and today's a big day. We're going to rack the settled juice from the pressed juice. This is a pressed white, and basically just going to rack it off into another carboy and then take some pH and specific gravity. That'll be it for the press. And if everything's fine, I'm going to go ahead and start to ferment. Okay, so I've got my carboy of pressed juice just sat above my empty carboy that's been sanitized, and I use Star San sanitizer, and I've also got a spray bottle of Star San, which I just make sure the top is all sanitized as well, just so we try to kill off as much microbes as possible. With the pressed grape juice, I'm not too worried about oxidation. The reason is it's going to be the lower quality juice. It's going to be a bit more of an astringent taste to it, and it will have a little bit more tannins and, well, other phenols and other things that come from the skin of the pressing itself. Hopefully that's enough to stop or slow down the oxidation. Nonetheless, this isn't really being treated with kid gloves. Now the free run juice is going to be a different game altogether, where it will be kept under strict CO2 atmosphere. The key point here is to get the must, the juice, off of the precipitate so that it doesn't cause cloudiness or anything else with the fermentation. So here we go. Break the seal. Done. Give it a little spray down with the Star San. Done. In this goes. Gingerly down. I got lots of distance, so I'm fine. And the only thing I really want to try to do, if possible, is to get the racked juice to flow down the side of the carboy, and that's really just so that I'm not aerating too much. Because even though it is the pressed juice, I still want to try to treat it, as reasonable as possible. So let's not aerate it too much. Now remember, fermentation is going to need a little bit of aeration anyway. The little yeasties, they need oxygen to get going. So we do need to keep that in mind as well. All right, that's probably going to take a good 10 minutes, I'd say. Okay, and along the way I'm going to collect about 100 mils of the must so that I can have a look at the pH, etc. It's blasting off pretty darn quick. Good. There we go. It looks gorgeous. The clarity is there, to be honest, for a white juice. I'm getting aromatics already from it. Get the sugar, the raisin, but I'm also getting I'm getting some floral contributions that are just beautiful, beautiful aromatics to this. So if this is smelling good, I can't wait to smell the free run. Try that. Absolutely gorgeous. Wow. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm just moving the juice all around my palate to the back of the tongue, coating everything, really looking for beyond the sweetness, because the sweetness is overpowering at this point. But after the sweetness comes really, really comes the aromatics. You can start to feel it develop in your mouth. So this is going to be a high quality wine. So this is going to make about 11.5% wine, which is pretty nice. The one thing that I'm not good at is developing the acidity with the sweetness in the must. I'm not very good at telling the difference or picking out the acidity. The sweetness seems to hide the acidity for me. The real pros, and I'm not a real pro, I'm not a pro at all, but the real pros can tell, they can understand the acidity, the sweetness, the aroma, and how that's going to develop upon fermentation. So really, really special. Again, I'm in Liverpool, and normally in September you're dealing with 16 or 17 degrees weather, but we're experiencing a heat wave. So outside right now it's hot and sunny. I've got my shorts on, which is really unusual in Liverpool in September, but inside here it warmed up a little bit this afternoon, so it's about 18 degrees in here. So this pressed juice has been sat somewhere between maybe down to 15 degrees at night all the way up to 18. So we are pushing that temperature region where we can start to get fermentation just from the natural yeast that happens to be kicking around. Now, I always keep an airlock on regardless if I'm fermenting or not, and there was absolutely zero bubbling coming off of this, so that tells me there wasn't a lot of natural yeast. Now doing this, I always take my time. I don't want to rush it, and I don't want to disturb the precipitate on the bottom whatsoever, so if I get cold feet, I'll just pull it. Okay, this is part of the fining process for the white wine, so we just don't want any of that precipitate to cloud it over. It'll just be a pain in the backside that we need to remove later. So, because the pressed juice tasted amazing, and in fact I'm starting to get stone fruit out of it, which is just glorious, I'm going to take more care with it, and right away just add some gas to the top just to get as much oxygen out as possible. There we go. So the juice that I wasn't going to treat as well, I've got to say, it's phenomenal. Okay, so I've got the yeast rehydrating now, so it's the same as with the red wine in that we're making, 6 gallons, about 27 liters, somewhere around there, of white wine. So I use GoFirm as my yeast nutrient, and I've added 6.25 grams of GoFirm in 125 milliliters of water that was at 43 degrees Celsius. Stirred it in to dissolve, allowed the temperature of the water to drop down to 35 degrees Celsius, at which point I added my yeast. And it's the same yeast that I've used for the red wine. So that's, yeah. Now we're just going to let it rehydrate for 20 minutes. All right, so we have finally equilibrated where our gorgeous looking yeast that sat in the GoFirm yeast nutrient has reached the same temperature as the must. And it is now time, and how exciting, to add the yeast to the pressed must. And let's see. Now I always keep sanitizer. Alright, and then what I'm going to do too is just give this a spray around, just to make sure. I don't want to take any risks with the beautiful, beautiful grape juice. this time around. So here we go. Add that. I'm going to give it one more stir up. And then in it goes. I'm going to add it slowly. Now it's difficult because with the carboy, it's not always easy to add things because it just kind of splatters in. Now we're going to get a little bit of oxygenation doing that, and that is good because these critters need some oxygen. Come on, everybody in. Now what I'm scraping out here is the Go Firm nutrient, not the yeast. Okay, it's a bit of a problem to dissolve. By the way, you always know if there's nitrogen-based yeast nutrient in things if it smells like bacon. So when you eat your next thing of bacon, have a think about that. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. We've done our addition. Now I'm going to give it a stir, and I don't have a carboy stir. I've just got my long spoon. And again, just get the yeast in there. Some people say not to stir, some people say to stir. I'm a stirrer. And it's also going to add just a little bit of oxygen, and that's fine with me. Now, these yeast won't be, they'll be shocked with the sugar content, but they won't be shocked with the temperature because it is precisely the same. Yeast is added. We are now having or working with wine, not must. It's fantastic, so I'm really excited.